All right, I would like to call to order the study session of September 22nd, 2025 at 6 p.m. All members are present, so we'll go ahead and start with item number 1, library update and lease extension with City Administrator Jason Wilson and Pierce County Library Executive Director Gretchen Casarati.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Bowman. And just for the record, Mayor Hayden is absent tonight. With us tonight is Executive Director for the Pierce County Library System, Gretchen Casarati. She's going to give you an update on the library, the new library that is. And then after that, I will be discussing with council an amendment to their existing lease for the old library properties. So Ms. Casarati, I'll turn it over to you and just let me know when you want to progress through your slides. I'll move them for you.
Excellent. Thank you all. Thank you, Jason. And to council, good to see you. I'm sorry I can't be there with you in person this evening, but I'm excited to share some news about when I'll be out in Sumner very soon. As Jason said, I'm just here to update you on the work that has been going on since last I saw you, which I think has...
Gretchen, can you go into your audio settings and turn up your mic volume?
Sure.
You're pretty faint on our side.
Noise removal, original sound. I switched the microphone. Does that sound a little louder?
No, I'm sorry.
Oof. Try one more thing.
Is there anything on our end we can do?
Trying this setting for original sound for musicians. Is that helping at all?
Just go in and yell.
Quieter. If you could maybe just lean in and speak a little louder, I think we'll be fine.
Okay. I will raise my voice and hope that helps. If that's a little better, I'll proceed with just sharing the updates on the library project. I do have a few slides to share with you this evening. We want to be able to share some images as well as answer any questions that you all might have for me. The design phase of the new library facility has been completed. Go ahead and move to the next slide, Jason, or whoever's advancing. Johnston Architects are our architects leading the project. They bring extensive experience in library design and have been facilitating a lot of engagement with both the community and library staff. We have received very positive feedback on the work that we've been doing in the last year and a half. So on our floor plan and the site orientation, it does look different from the last time that I came to visit with you all. We have done a lot of work. The main thing that you would note is the change of the main driveway and entrance to the site has moved from the eastern side to Main Street. So it did require that we redesigned and shifted the building and the placement on site. This floor plan is very exciting. Unlike any of our buildings in the library system, it has a dedicated sensory room to support neurodiverse patrons, a generous allocation of space for teens and youth, and a commitment to sustainability with plans to achieve LEED Silver certification. Cost estimating has been done throughout each stage of the design process, and while we are experiencing a higher current estimate than we had planned, several factors did contribute to those increased costs and some of the delay that you've seen in this ambitious project timeline. One of those major things is that we didn't know about the soil conditions. And so the soil conditions drove the costs and impacted our timeline. As we understood and learned about the methane gas emissions, we had to make some design adjustments to the site plan. And we also have made modifications to the preload design. I mentioned the driveway relocation, and I'll speak a little bit more about the preload in a little bit in this presentation. Go ahead to the next slide, please. The southwest Yeah, there we go. This view is from the southwest side of the property. So the fence along the property next door, the funeral home next door. This is the view that is toward the building near the children's area. We're very, very honored to have received grants to help us install both outdoor space as well as indoor space for our children's and active play area in this building. We're very excited about embracing both play as a learning modality, but also really embracing that literacy comes and helps children be prepared to be in school in their early years through lots of different development, including gross motor skills as well. So we're excited to be working with partners to design that space out. Go ahead with the next slide. This view, speaking of young people, is a very exciting part of the building. This is from the exterior on Main Street. This is the view that our teens will have coming from the high school down the street. We are going to have our teen area right on the street side there, so it'll be very visible what's happening in the teen space. And we really want the north exit on Main Street to be a really inviting way for kids to come on bikes or scooters or walking over from the high school down the block. We also have, you can't see it in this rendering, but on the floor plan, there is a program room that will be dedicated for real hands-on activities. We know that place will be very busy after school. Teens love to do everything from making duct tape wallets to doing coding clubs. And we know that that's going to be a really fun place for our kids to come and have a safe place to be with healthy adult role models. Next slide, please. The interior view, first glance, would be coming in from the Main Street side. And a couple of things to share with you on this view here. You'll have all the standard things that you expect a library to have, certainly books and computers and places to sit. This, you can't quite see it from here, but just to the right on the image, when you come in the Main Street side, that is where we're going to have the community partner space. And then there are study rooms along the wall that lead back to the teen area there. So lots of light, lots of visibility across the open space in the library. And also, I'd like to call your attention to the floor in that area. So that is actually taken from our maps of the rivers, and it actually is the following. It is a replication of the river waters that go through the area. We're going to be using this as a tool for telling the story of the history of Sumner through the land, if you will. And then we also have a space that's not available to be seen in this rendering, but behind the river there, there's a wall that will allow us to share some of Sumner's history in a visible way as well. As far as the, the community partner space, that space, we're very grateful to the Sumner Rotary for providing the seed funding for that space in our building. And we intend to have a partnership that will allow community services to come out of Tacoma and come into East Pierce County, where we know that there are some services that are lacking or difficult to get to. This is a part of our new strategic plan that we launched in 2025. And we are expanding resource navigation with these high impact partnerships as a strategy for the organization. So we've been consulting with, over the last year, United Way, school leaders, we've held workshops, and we've determined we will actually be launching an RFP process early in 2026. So stay tuned for more information on that. And I think we can move to the next slide here. Yeah, thank you. So what comes next is that we will be working on the FF&E, our fixtures, furnishings, and equipment for the interiors. We're finalizing some of the work on local history and kind of finessing our drawings. We are in the process of preparing the RFPs for contractors. which will be going out very soon, and then we'll know how much it's really going to cost. And public communications will also resume alongside of the commencement of the construction. Very excited to be able to share. Those of you on City Council have received an invitation. We will be having a groundbreaking event scheduled for October 2nd at 1 p.m. During the event, we know that due to the soil conditions, the soils will remain on site for an undetermined period. We don't know yet how long that's going to take for the preload. Engineers developed a phased approach for us to expedite the process as much as possible. So if you're going to be able to join us that day, make sure you wear appropriate footwear for if any of you have driven by the equipment mobilized starting today, and we're starting to turn some dirt. So it's a very exciting time for us after a long road of planning and partnership and consultation, and we're really, really excited to be able to see this work commence. And as always, grateful to the city, Jason and his team, for being such a great partner in helping us navigate this construction project. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you all may have for me this evening, and available if you'd like me to stay for the discussion about our request for the lease extension on the current facility. Thank you so much.
Any questions?
No.
Great.
Can you give a rough estimate as to the timeline, like for an opening date? Just, I know it's kind of rough to tell now, but a lot of people
Yeah, I
are
really
asking.
can't. We learned from our interim library in Lakewood that it is so dependent on the contractors and the supply chain. And so we estimate 18 to 24 months for construction. Once we have a contractor and we learn how long the preload needs to sit, we'll have a better idea of what the construction timeline will look like. So early 26, I will have a better answer for you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Andy?
Hey Gretchen, I got a little bit of a question. I think I got some feedback about a couple months ago, maybe it was in June. My 10-year-old was at the library with my wife, and we've always spent a lot of time at the library in the past. And I think I was curious on the new library. One of the things we noticed, he went in there and he was looking for books. Is it was I don't know if this is a change, but his comments were like there's a significantly increased amount of sexualized material for children, and I think feel like he felt uncomfortable. So I think my wife and they decided to go to a bookstore and just buy the book they were looking for. I was just curious, is the library is there some boundaries here where we can limit some of that sexual material? It's very uncomfortable for a 10-year-old to go in. And I don't know if the design is affecting this or if that's just, I don't know what happened there, but we've always really enjoyed the library, and that was just some feedback I got from my son. And recently.
Well, I think there's a lot in that question. So my short answer is it sounds like we should probably follow up with you to chat a little more in depth. And the longer answer would take a lot more time that isn't necessarily on your agenda. But I know that the concept of the First Amendment is kind of on everyone's tongues these days. And there's certainly, my response would be, there's a lot wrapped up in that that's very subjective around the content of materials that are appropriate for children. And so what I can tell you with great confidence is we are very experienced. We are very sound in our policies and our understanding of the rights and rules that everyone experiences as a citizen in our community. And that we do follow our policy. We also have a process for reconsidering any materials that someone might have a question about. And our process is really grounded in fairness, equity, and consistency. So we do sometimes get it wrong. Maybe that was a teen book and it was in the wrong spot. Because as you can imagine, we can't actually read every single book that we put in the collection. So there's a little bit of a hint at a longer answer. I'll be happy to reach out with you and sit down and find out a little bit more about your family's experience. And we also have some guides for parents. Our librarians are really, really good at helping people find the right content for their families. Everyone is very different in our community. So As far as the design of the new library, no, we're just like bookstores. We're just like traditional libraries in that books are really arranged for the intended audiences, so who it's published for. And we typically use all of the resources available to buying the materials that we have for reviews, information from publishers, bestseller lists, those kinds of things. Our policy is available on the website and it has a lot of information about what we select for the collections. And I will follow up with you, Andy, a council member, over email, and we'll set up a time to chat a little further if that's okay.
Sure. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Councilmember Kenna, I'm trying to ask you to be formal like that instead of anything brave.
Thank you. Yeah, Gretchen, thanks for the presentation and the update. I'm very excited about you all getting to work on the groundbreaking and seeing how fast we can get this done for our community. I just am curious a little bit about the play area and the part of the design notated as children, and just what that might actually all look like, that space might look like. I'm looking at the renderings and it's like, I think that's adjacent to Valley Avenue, if I'm correct. So pretty high trafficked area. I didn't know how like soundproof that might be from the traffic. It looks like there's trees and bushes and things like that. But yeah, what is that space going to look like?
Yeah, Jason, I was just going to say the floor plan there, the site plan has kind of an idea. There is fencing around, and I want to say the section around 8-foot fencing, Jason, I think is what was settled for the design. So from the neighborhood, those are residences on the back side, the funeral home to the west, and then the multi-use, there's a building there on the corner as well. So this is kind of located in between commercial and abuts against residential. Our architects have definitely got good plans for acoustics and sound inside and outside. And I think I don't have much more to add on that. Just know that we'll have buffers for the residents. You can see lots of landscaping, things like that.
Okay, thanks for calling out that fencing, which I don't think I saw from the drawings, but I can, if it's that black line, then that makes sense for.
Yeah, we worked, and the
safety.
residents gave us some suggestions and requests around those, and we were happy to work with folks on that.
Great, thank you.
Okay, anything else? All right, well, thank you.
Great,
Jason?
thank you. It's good to see you. I'll be back.
Gretchen, do you want to stick around for just a second while you talk about your lease?
Yep.
Questions about.
Mhm.
The other thing that's a companion to this item is the lease on the existing site. So you might recall the old library is 100% owned by the city, the land and the building underneath. And that was a change that happened in 2021. Prior to 2021, the city owned all the land and the building was owned 50-50 between us and the library district. So in 2021, we entered into a lease agreement our plan at the time was that would give the library plenty of time to get the LCFA passed and then also go under construction for the new library. Well, that lease agreement expired September 12th of this year. So the mayor entered into a 3-year extension for that lease. And what we did is we also shifted some of the responsibilities. So before the old lease, all of the maintenance and operation for that facility fell on the city. And under the amendment, we've set up a dual approach. So if there's a significant repair that needs to be done that's over $75,000, the parties will get together and we'll figure out how to pay for that. And when we talk about those type of expenses, it's like usually HVAC, roof, something that is significant. Any other repairs need to be done, the library will be responsible for up to $150,000. So as long as it's minor repairs, say it's a $10,000 HVAC repair, the library is on the hook for that. It's only if it goes over 75, we agree to meet. As a reminder, that building is at end of life. We had it assessed back in 2020, and it has some roof issues. It has some structural issues. The cost to repair it far exceeded the value of the building at the time. So that is why we're not investing a lot of money in repairing it at this point. So if council has any questions about the lease, I'm happy to answer them. If not, it will be on your October 6th consent agenda for consideration.
Council Member Badetto.
So the lease would go through October of 2028,
September of 28.
September 28, but, and by that time, let's hope the new library is up and running. So yes, thank you.
They're making great progress, so I have confidence that we will have a new library well before that.
Council Member Elpers.
I was just curious, since we're just looking at like a 2 or 3 page extension, it doesn't really tell me much about the lease itself. I know that it's probably just a formality, but I'd love to see. Is there like an existing lease? Is there like some really bullet point? Like what does the lease look like? We're extending a lease that is in
Sure.
existence.
Okay, so this is an amendment, so it is very short. It's just what
Yeah.
changed in the original lease. The original lease was approved by council in 2021. I'm happy to email that to you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Questions? Concerns? Okay, thank you. We good, Jason?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. So we will now move on to item 2, skate park demolition with City Administrator Jason Wilson.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Get a moment to get the presentation up. All right, before you today, we're going to talk about the skate park and the proposed demolition of it. So a little bit of history. The city acquired land in 2001 for the skate park from the Catholic Church and then constructed it shortly thereafter. 2001, 2007, it was used heavily, but it also experienced quite a bit of vandalism and misuse of the park. The city invested in additional fencing and security cameras, as well as some outreach programs to help curb that behavior. Most of that occurred in 2008, 2009. In 2018, the Northern Pro Bowl, which is the one on the left here in the picture, was filled. It was filled because there was some structural damage at the bottom, and where there was water pooling and it was no longer safe. So our own staff broke up the bowl and then filled it with dirt. In 2019, the Southern Bowl was rehabilitated and painted. There's quite a bit of news coverage when that happened because one of our police officers at the time led that campaign. It was painted well and some coping replaced. And then the bowl was used pretty heavily up until 2023. In 23, there was some damage discovered on the northern side of the Southern Bowl. And what we discovered was that the ground underneath was sinking and then causing the concrete curbing and adjacent flat areas to sink. So they stabilized that, filled it all in, poured new concrete, and that had worked well for about a little over a year. And then last year, additional settling started to occur and damage, and the park's actually been closed since fall of last year due to the hazardous conditions. There's just a couple pictures to show that represent a lot of the hazards that are out there. You can see the big cracks in the bowl. The coping's cracked on top, and then there's pieces that are missing down below. We had Grindline, who builds and designs skate parks, come out and do an assessment for us in March of last year. They noted, widespread structural issues that required immediate attention, and the current condition was poor end of life. When you read the definition of poor end of life, it says that you could do some minor repairs to keep it functional for up to another 5 years. And then they said, well, if you want to do those repairs, it's about $182,000 to rehab it, not knowing how many years you would get out of it, but probably no more than 5. Also, that cost doesn't include the drainage improvements that would be required, additional grading or other unknown conditions that they run into. Comparatively, a new skate park on the site is estimated to cost approximately $1 million. So our recommended action is we need to mitigate the risk. We've been closed now for a year. There's only 2 ways to mitigate it. It's either repair it or to demolish it and then grade and hydroseed it. Our Parks and Trail Plan did look at this when we updated it in 2024, and it did show that there is interest in our community for either a skate park and or a pump track improvements in either here or at another facility. We did put this out to bid. We received 12 bids. The low bid is $102,000. You add your contingency onto that, just under $115,000. We are recommending the council approve the contract and that it be funded out of our general fund reserves. If you're agreeable, we'll bring this to the next council meeting for action, and the demolition would occur shortly thereafter. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions or comments? I'm just gonna start down on the end. Councilmember Kenna.
Okay. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Yeah, Jason, just a couple here for you. In terms of usage of the park, I know you specified when it first came out, it was fairly highly used. Obviously, we've had some repairs here and there, so I'm sure that's waxed and waned, but and then you also, I think at the end mentioned like the desire for a skate park or a pump track, but I'm just trying to get a sense, because when I drive by there, I don't see it being used, but it's also been closed. And so what can you tell me about the desire and the usage of it?
It'd be anecdotal, what I can tell you.
Yeah, I'll take that.
Yeah, certainly. Obviously, whenever the park is vandalized, it got locked up. So it's been locked up a fair amount over the last 5 to 10 years. As the condition continues to deteriorate, we wouldn't rush out right away and repair things. So we usually allow some repairs to build up and then try to repair several things at once. What I have seen out there is a lot of people riding scooters or bikes in there, and that's not an appropriate use of the park and could be leading to some of our damage that's occurring. And then generally it's a hangout spot for youth in the area that may or may not be skating. I'd say a lot of times they're not skating, but they're still associated with that area.
And with the pump track option that was kind of floated around, are there conditions with the soil and the surroundings that it's going to make it difficult no matter what we do with that property, or are there things about a pump track that just make it a little more suitable to that area?
One thing to remember is a pump track is on top of the grade. It's not, yes, you're having to grade the soil and create the tracks, but it's not embedded like the Big Bull was. Obviously, we need to do a lot of engineering to get that design, and we have not done that. And the pump track might be here, but the Parks and Trail Plan also says it could be at a different park too. It wouldn't necessarily have to be at the sports complex. If you might recall, we were in discussions with the school district over doing an intergovernmental transfer of this sports complex to the district. That did fall through for the time being, but even as part of that, they were going to demolish the skate park and grade it as part of their project.
Thank you.
Yep.
Councilmember Ranky.
Yeah, just 2 quick questions. The property was donated or did we buy it from the church? Do you remember?
It was donated, if I recall. Andrea, do you remember?
Donated.
Donated. And then do you, just curiosity, do you have a rough estimate what that cost when we did it? The skate park back then, was it?
I don't off the top of my head.
I'm just curious. If it's $1 million now, it's probably at least half that then or something, I imagine. I was just curious what we have into it. But that's all. Thanks.
Councilmember Potato.
Yeah. If it was to be rebuilt and not at the Heath complex, where would you suggest, or where are you thinking? Or does Derek have any ideas?
I think it's too early to tell, but as you all know, we have Siebenthaler that has a master plan, Bennett that has a master plan as well, and both those parks could accommodate either a skate park or a pump track. There's also, it could stay a Bill Heath Sports Complex. I think long term, it fits that area well.
Yeah. Okay, and then what is a pump track?
Good question. A pump track is, Derek, correct me if I'm wrong, a pump track is a above ground, basically asphalt path that has curves and like banked on it and hills, and you ride a BMX bike on it.
Oh, okay, all right, thank you.
Yep.
Councilmember Elpers.
Thanks. Okay, I had a couple questions. So can you tell me, I think I read in the thing, but I want to make sure I understood. So what does it mean? So you're demoing it, and then what does it look like at the end of demolition?
Just grass.
Just grass. And then on that, remember we did, are we looking at the type of fill we're putting in? Because we're eventually going to do something potentially with that area. I know we did, in the past, we did like the Rainier View Park and that filter, it was pretty rough. Are we gonna evaluate that as part of the contract to make sure it's something that doesn't just end up being clay and creating more water issues?
Mr. Cosa, do you want to answer that? You need a mic or you need to go up here.
Just yell really loud. Yeah, I can yell really loud. Yeah.
You guys will both.
Yeah, oh well. Yeah, the contractor would be the one supplying the fill soil, and we would be able to review where it's coming from. We would make sure that it's quality.
Okay, yeah, I just think it'd be great to make sure it drained and it didn't get worse, because I think we have an issue now, and I just feel like that we wish we'd done a little better on our filter at Rainier View Park, so that'd be great to double check on if we already have a soils requirement, I'm assuming in the contract. Anyways, that sounds good. And then one more question was, so it looks like it's coming out of reserve funds. How's that? But I'm not sure how this dollar amount compares to what we have in reserves and all that stuff. Do you have any comments on that? Because I don't know.
We're talking about the general fund balance.
Okay.
So it's more appropriate terminology. So it's at general fund balance and there's adequate fund balance to cover this.
Okay, because we don't do too many things like this that are out of the budget, just this kind of,
Sure.
and then final question was, so on the maintenance of it, so how does this impact maintenance? Right now, we have fences around it, it's closed. I'm assuming there's not a lot of maintenance, but then the fence itself, maybe we're renting it, and how does it look like now we start mowing it? Is it more expensive, less expensive, pretty similar? Like, what does it look like as far as maintenance costs?
My guess is it will be easier to maintain because we're not dealing with the graffiti on the bowl. We're not dealing with the concrete repairs. And so although we haven't had a lot of costs recently because it's been fenced and closed, when it was operational, it was constantly having to be cleaned out, blown out, swept, etc. So.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Well, actually, not a question, just a comment. Well, thank you. I had zero clue what a pump track was and never heard of that. So thank you for that question. I was going to ask that myself. And so this really isn't about the demolition, but just to say, or the comment is that there is this means one less thing for the kids to be able to do out in the neighborhood, and that's just sort of disappointing. We can't do anything about it because this is a sort of a no-brainer. It has to be done, but I wish that there was just something that we could do with that space so that kids could still have some place to kind of hang out. That's it. Thanks.
Anybody else? Okay,
Closing, Deputy Mayor, I just want to say that I appreciate council considering this. I know it's never easy to lose an asset and not replace something right away. But the unmitigated risk of kids still accessing the skate park by, climbing the fence presents a significant liability to the city. So it's important that we're taking positive steps to that approach.
thank you. All right, so we will move on to item 3, resolution number 1713, Senior Center Community Development Block Grant Acceptance. So I'll call on Community Services Director Derek Berry, please.
Hello, thank you for having me here tonight. So the Community Development Block Grant, we applied for it, I believe, in mid-2024. Since it's a federal grant, Pierce County does the handling of it. We were selected at that time and we've just been in a waiting game. So we just got paperwork last week. This is why we scrambled to get it on the agenda here. Timeline is pretty tight, but what they're providing funding for is $203,000 to help with replacing the hard surface flooring throughout the entire senior center. So the kitchen, the hallways, the main room, the bathrooms, as well as converting the partition walls that separate the big room into motorized partition walls. They're incredibly challenging to use and move, and their staff has to help to do. So for you tonight is the acceptance of the grant. If you have any questions, I'd love to hopefully answer them for you.
Any questions?
Councilman Elbers.
Yeah, just curious, my memory's not as good, so we had a lot of capital items on our budget when we did it last year, and I just trying to remember, I know we had something for this, is this part of that budget and we already had it budgeted in?
Yes, it is in the budget and it was part of the whole thing. We just were waiting on the documentation for us to actually these won't be, are getting the money. So it's a reimbursable grant.
Got it. Okay, so when we did the budget, we were anticipating getting this, we just didn't know when.
Yeah.
Okay, I was hoping we were saving the money more than we were just spending on the demolition, so, okay, well, that's fine, either way, good, that sounds good.
Councilmember,
Councilmember Botetto's deciding.
Well, I just think it's important that we keep the senior center, usable, because it is used by quite a few people, and, updating is a great idea, especially if getting a grant. So.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else?
So you'll see this next at the October 6th council meeting. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to item number 4, ordinance number 2938, donation, naming rights and sponsorship. So we'll call on Doug Ruth, Deputy City Attorney, please.
Good evening, thank you. Been before the council previously, but not in a study session, so I'm glad to be here, though I didn't really dress as in more informal study session, but I'm glad to be in a more informal circumstance. And with that, I will just make a personal note about pump tracks. I know that my son loves the pump track in Auburn. And so if you want to see what a pump track really looks like, there's one in Southern Auburn. I think it's called Cedar Grove, but they've done a nice job there. Cedar Lakes, it's like Cedar Lakes, something like that. Anyway, Cedar Grove is the waste area, I think. So donations and naming rights ordinance. We have 2 mandatory sections. They don't make a lot of changes. It's mostly a change in clarifying and emphasizing some different points of the current code, and that code is 3.54. And then we have 2 new sections. So I'm going to quickly go over the mandatory provisions and then spend a little more time on the new sections. I'm going to start out with defining terms, the different donation types, and then I'll talk about the current provisions in the code so we know where the baseline is, and then look at a side-by-side change in the donation amounts that trigger who approves those donations, and then give the description of the balance of the changes in the ordinance. So let's start off with the donation types. So monetary donation, we all know about that, money, money, money. Non-monetary donations usually are something like a tree, a slide that are given directly to the city, or it might be land. And then a little bit different is the monetary donation for a specific purpose. So this would be like a donation with conditions, strings attached. My picture there is the best I could do for the $ with strings attached, but the strings might be how it's going to be used. A monetary donation with conditions on that it will be used to purchase a slide or used to purchase a tree, or maybe where that goes, etc. The 4th group is sponsorship. So that might be usually tied to an activity or an event of the cities. And it would be the name of the individual or company that has provided money to be a sponsor. And the banner might say brought to you by Dunder Mifflin. And then the 4th last category is a little bit different than a donation. It's naming rights. I think we're familiar with this with T-Mobile Park, Lumen Field, locally Sunset Chevrolet Stadium. It was a situation where a company usually pays to get their name on a facility. So moving to the current code and starting with the high-level approval authority for monetary donations, that is approved either by the city administrator, finance committee, and city council, depending on the amounts. And I'll jump into those amounts in a second on the side-by-side. For non-monetary, and regardless of value, it's going to go to a director if it's for a specific program. So if somebody wants to donate a slide to a budgeted program, then the director can approve that. If it's not for a budgeted program or facility, then the city administrator would have to approve it. The code says that there's no obligation to accept donations, purely discretionary on whoever is the approval authority. But the approver must receive an estimate of the related costs from the department, the future costs, And presumably that would be used to make part of the decision. And there are notably no provisions regarding sponsorship or naming rights. So that's all new. Okay. And here's the side-by-side dealing with the approval authority for monetary donations. Currently, donations of less than $1,000. So we can think of maybe donations to Metro. Metro gets a lot of small donations each year. Those are approved by the city administrator. In the proposed ordinance, it would rise to less than $5,000. So it's been 5-6 years since we adopted it, inflation. So we thought it was appropriate to increase these levels here. Finance committee currently at 1 to 5,000, it would jump to 5 to 50,000, and city council 5,000 or more would move that up to 50,000 or more. Now the ordinance doesn't change who the tiers of approvers, who can approve it. It's still the city administrator, the finance committee, but it does change the dollar amounts and also allows for either the city administrator or the finance committee to bump up to the city council a referral or a proposal for a donation. So there might be something of small dollar amount, but it has a significance to it that the city administrator feels like it should be in front of the city council to decide. There might be some controversy with it. So that allows for a change there. The change also says that whoever is making the decision, it's a final decision. There's no appeal of that. City may reject a donation for any reason. This really just clarifies that provision that's currently in code, just to emphasize that the city has complete discretion on whether or not to accept a donation. Conditioned donations will be accompanied by an agreement. So if somebody wants to make a donation and put conditions on it, which is allowed by current code, now it would need to be by agreement. The idea there just is to have the conditions very clear. There can always be misunderstandings, even with a written agreement, but having a written agreement diminishes the chances for disagreement about those conditions, because some of these only become an issue decades later. So it's important to have some clarity on that. Next, items purchased with donated funds or the city's property. Donated non-monetary items are also the city's property. The expectation here is when you make a donation, it's forever and it's to the city. The city can make the decisions about that donation. Finally, the city will adopt a policy for administering the ordinance. So this would have things such as how to process the applications for a donation, estimating the maintenance and installation costs, how we're going to retire items, who might be unacceptable donors that we generally don't want to receive donations from. Think maybe adult websites, alcohol industry, and then maybe distinction between what a recognition is and a sponsor is. And I'll get to that in a second. So moving on specifically to the new sections, ordinance sponsorship and naming provisions. The ordinance would provide for the mayor to recognize a donor who gives support to a specific event or program. So this is really that recognition and kind of the distinction here. So think about the rave program or event that we recently had. If Joe's Sporting Goods had donated all the soccer balls, the mayor might want to stand up and say, thank Joe for providing all the soccer balls today, very helpful. That would be recognition. But the mayor can also execute a sponsorship agreement for more formal arrangements that promote a business or a product. And there example might be like if Dunder Mifflin wanted to increase their exposure in Sumner, they might say, hey, let's sponsor the float. And it might say that on the side of the float as it goes by. That would be something where you'd want a sponsorship agreement. Moving to naming rights, City Council will approve naming of city facilities and parks and any naming rights that are valued above $50,000. So no matter what the value is, if somebody's seeking to name a city park or a city facility, that has to come before this body. If it's not a city park or facility, but it's a $50,000 value, or that's what the proposed payment is, has to come before the city council. So as opposed to that, the mayor may approve any naming rights that are not for the park or facility, probably a room, maybe a playground, if the payment is $50,000 or less. So that's how the approval authority is tiered. All naming rights will be by written agreement. Again, just in the thought, the goal of having it very clear on maybe what the name is going to be, where it's going to be placed, how much the amount is. They give us a warranty that they own the name. That maybe there's a time limitation on it. We want to have provisions maybe for canceling it if the company does something that would bring a bad light onto the city. So just some protections that you'd want to have in an agreement. Only the city council could rescind a name once assigned, so regardless of who approved it, only the city council could pull it back. Now, the agreement might have provisions in it saying when there might be a cancellation, but outside of that, the city council will have sole authority there. The ordinance also provides for the mayor also to draft policies, again, here to operate the ordinance changes. The ordinance doesn't apply to streets. That's separate provision in code. And it also doesn't limit the city council, of course, from naming a park or a facility on their own accord. It doesn't have to be, of course, by a sponsor or a company that's interested in gaining naming rights. Of course, the city council can always name a park. Okay, I'll finally talk about the last new provision, and that's maintenance of current donated items. This wasn't something that's covered in code, but staff felt like there needed to be addressed. The new section provides that a city has discretion over maintenance, relocation, and removal. So this goes with the ownership idea that ownership is being transferred to us, the city. Because we have ownership, then we get to make those decisions on what maintenance is needed, whether or not we need to relocate it because we're changing the design of a park, and ultimately when it needs to be removed. Now, of course, the city doesn't want to have items donated and then completely neglect them. So there is a provision that the city shall provide reasonable maintenance until it decides that removal is necessary. That can come because it's not financially feasible any longer to maintain items. Some things come to the end of their life. We today talked about the skate park, the library building, they're coming to the end of their life. So the city should have the ability to make that decision on when something is at the end of their life. There's unexpected costs. The varnish on a piece of artwork may not have stood up as well as the artist thought, and it just becomes expensive to keep maintaining it. Similarly, we have no obligation to repair or replace items that are damaged or stolen. Unfortunately, that does happen, and the city should have full discretion over those choices. And again, kind of part and parcel, we would need to seek donor permission or even provide notice, though I imagine we would try to do that on most occasions if we were retiring an item or maintaining it. So I think that covers the highlight of the provisions in the ordinance, and I'm happy to answer questions about it.
Any questions? Councilman Elpers.
Yeah, I just was curious on the first part of it. So the donation things. I was just question was, so you said finance committee can approve, and it was changing from 1 to 5, to 5 to 50. What does it mean for finance committee to approve? Does that mean it goes on the consent agenda? Does that mean it just like they could approve it, nobody sees it at the council level?
I haven't been involved in that. I imagine it would go to finance committee meeting and would be discussed and voted on there.
So it would never make it to council.
Correct. So similar to like a surplus item.
Got it. Okay. And then I think in that, let's see. Do you guys have any, Jason, maybe do you have information? How often does this happen, the donations right now? Like, is this a pretty common thing? Because I don't feel like we have to approve grants and a couple of things, but donations, I don't recall seeing very many. Is this very common?
Yeah, a lot of the donations we get, as Doug alluded to, was through Metro Animal Services. Sometimes we'll get some bequeathments even through that. So those do have to, depend on the dollar amount, may or may not come to council. The other donations typically are tied to event sponsorship. So sometimes we'll get groups that want to help sponsor a city portion of an event. But large dollar donations are pretty rare. I can't think of any. We do have an early agreement with Sumner Rotary for the stage over at Heritage Park Phase 3. That we've entered into an agreement that it's not even a full agreement, it's just a funding agreement. It'll eventually have to be ratified by council based on the dollar amount.
Okay, I think just my first glance at that was my comfort level at 50,000 seems, I'm uncomfortable with that. I feel like the 1 to 5 is reasonable. I feel like going from 5 to 50 is like 10 times. So I feel like that, to me, that's a lot of, I feel like to not know about it at all at a council level, that seems like something, somebody could donate something, I wouldn't even know what happened. If I wasn't on the finance committee, that makes me uncomfortable. So I would prefer something more along like the same vein. So like from 1 to 5 and then 5 to 25 or something where it was, I just feel like that's too big of a jump in my opinion. But other than that, it looks good on the donations thing. I don't know, other people can weigh in on that. And then I just had a couple questions on the naming. I just did a quick search on the naming compared to other cities. It's interesting, some of the input comparing ours is that I think other cities bring a lot more public input. The way that we're looking at the naming rights looks like we're leaning towards more of a commercial transactional style. So we're really just trying to generate revenue, which is good in some circumstances and has some other negatives. So it comes across like somebody can buy the heritage. I think other cities have they emphasize the significance of the name versus the commercial benefit. And so I think we're leaning towards that, looking for a different purpose. And so I'm just kind of thinking through that.
Yeah, I don't think this would exclude, yes, there are two different kind of naming structures. One is, like you say, more commercial one, and one is just like an honorary recognition. And I don't think that the one excludes the other. If the city council, even if they had a proposal for a paid naming rights, could certainly decide to honor a citizen by providing that name for the park or building instead. So.
Okay. And I think in that same vein, I think there's a couple of them that don't have any dollar amount and ours does. And so I think my preference is, I think because it is, I think number one, I'd like to see a little bit more public input in that because I feel like the public input is important. I think that the mayor and the city council can decide it, but I do feel like putting something in there. I think some of the ordinances look like they're very focused on public input. I don't think we need to be as far, I think just going closer to the middle would be ideal for me. That's my input. And then as far as, again, the dollar amount, there's a couple of places where the mayor can approve by themselves. And I feel like I prefer it was just the city council. I don't think it's very common, so I feel like it'd be nice for the council to approve it. I think it's nice to have the input and we just decide whether or not I don't see the dollar amount as significance, because I do think we're taking a public asset and we're naming it. That should reflect the community, and I think the council should weigh in on that. As well as the community. I don't think the dollar threshold is necessary. I noticed a lot of cities don't have a dollar threshold. So that's kind of my feedback on those two items. And again, I don't know if other people agree, but that's where I'm at.
We'll go ahead. You probably
I was
have
just
a question.
Well, no, I was just gonna ask if you would provide me with the city one comparable city codes that you looked at.
Oh, sure. Yeah. It's all AI nowadays. So I feel like the Tacoma Metro Parks have some. I think the ones that are more towards heritage include Seattle, Olympia, and Bonnie Lake. Those are more focused on community values, and it sounds like Tacoma Metro Parks are more similar to ours. It did say, it sounds like our rescission clause is stronger, which I think was good. The rescission clause being that, if we don't like, if we do give naming rights and then something happens and the company does something that looks bad, then we can take it away pretty easily in this ordinance, which I appreciate. So anyways, there's some interesting comparisons, but again, those are the three that are more heritage friendly would be Seattle, Olympia, Bonnie Lake. The two that were mentioned as being more focused on the corporate transactional model was Tacoma Metro Parks. So I think we're more similar to Tacoma Metro Parks. It does they have a really good checklist of positive and negatives. So I just kind of want to just make sure we discuss it. I think that our model, the negatives are risking commercialization of public spaces and limiting the community voice. And then the other model, the negatives are it generates no revenue and it's slower, more bureaucratic. And so I feel like there's positives on both too. So to me, like the side-by-side comparison of how we're doing it is important. I know we're looking at it probably for specific projects at the moment. But as we think about it, I just wanted to just kind of just bring those up as comparisons to think about, because we haven't done it before. So it seems like it's good to talk about it.
If I could just ask a clarifying question, Councilmember Alfers. It's why actually not a question, more like a point of clarity. The proposed ordinance, when you're talking about naming a facility or park, does already require council approval. That is, I think what you're saying isn't exactly matching that, so I want to make sure we understand.
I'm just looking at like section C in the naming rights and donations. It says naming rights. The mayor may accept monetary or monetary donations for the naming rights of cities, provided the amount is less than 50,000. So it sounds to me in that section of it that the 50,000 or less, the mayor can do it unilaterally.
Well, it would just be for portions of a facility or park. So a room or a playground, as opposed to naming the full park or the full building.
Okay.
And is your point of view that even with the room and a playground, that should go before city council, or are you just thinking that's parks and?
That's my preference. Yeah, I think at this point, because we haven't done it, I think I would prefer that because the name is something that we all are representing. I don't think it's very common. I don't think it's gonna happen dozens of times a year. I think it's gonna happen once every 5 years or 10 years, or maybe you have a building, then you have a bunch of rooms and it happens like 4 or 5 times in a year. I'm just trying to anticipate that and thinking, that I think a little bit more public input is good, and I think the council having more open discussion is my preference on that. I think that especially if we're moving to a more commercial transactional base where we're looking to generate revenue, then I think to make it transparent, I think it would be significant to have the council involved in a little more community input to balance that out. So
Councilmember Potato.
So I'm pleased to see the comments you have about the no obligation to repair or replace damaged or stolen items. And no, the city doesn't have to return items that were donated to this, like we've had issues in the last couple of years about plaques and about benches where people think that it's their right to have those back. And so I'm glad that there's something in the language here that says you're not obligated to return those. I think it was a courtesy that the city did it. But in my opinion, things come to an end of life, they're like the plaques were very thin veneers and they were not really something that was going to last forever and ever. So I just am glad to see that the language is there.
I looked at a lot of other city provisions, and the vast majority had similar provisions as this.
Anyone else? Councilmember Kenna.
Kind of to Andy's questioning earlier, I was just trying to clarify that section C under the naming rights donations. Again, the last sentence about the city council having the discretion to rescind all naming rights. So is it my understanding that the mayor could, if it's under 50,000, could, as Andy, Councilmember Elfers put it, unilaterally decide to accept naming rights donation, but then the council could then, not that we're not friendly here, we're all friendly, we like each other, but the council could say, actually, we don't like that very much, and so we don't want to do that.
I guess under the code, that's a possibility. It wasn't drafted with that intent. It was drafted that the rescission would happen either because a circumstance has changed down the line. But as it's drafted, that is true. The city council could just turn right around and rescind it, and maybe that's a check and a balance.
Okay.
I'll have to consider that if we want to have it that way, or I guess, are you approving of that?
I'm not sure. I'm sitting here, I'm not sure where I'm at in the conversation, but it's a good conversation to have.
Okay.
I also kind of had a general question about how I assume we have a community engagement plan of some sort. I know Carmen, I don't think is here tonight. We have an arts commission. I don't think they're active at the moment. But we have other avenues. We got a Parks Commission as well. What role do those elements of city business play in this conversation as well? I don't see them mentioned here. Finance Committee was brought up, but what role do those play?
So let's use a park donation. Let's say somebody wants to donate a picnic table for a park. Okay, that would be reviewed by the Parks and Forestry Commission as part of that donation acceptance.
Okay. So they have a part of that. The Arts Commission probably not involved in a lot of these types of donations then.
If it was specific to something under their purview,
okay,
then yes.
Okay.
So, and that's something you're digging now into the policy side of it,
Right,
not the
right.
code side of it.
And I'm
That's what
just
the policy
trying-
Does contemplate that.
Yeah, and I'm kind of poking around because I'm just trying to see like what other ways that we influence as staff, as council, whatever that might be, when we adopt plans, like community engagement as part of our planning. If we have feedback from the community that says these are important elements of our history and our culture and things like that. And then when we go to accept naming rights donations and consider that and be, well, this actually isn't really in alignment with what people say they care about. I'm just trying to see what other elements of our business have an influence too. So I think that's helpful. And again, I don't know where I land on this conversation right now, but.
And as Jason mentioned, that might be something that we could insert into the policy to require.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you. Deputy City Attorney Ruth, what do you got, Jason?
So at this point, I have not heard a consensus of any amendments or changes that need to be made. So if council has an amendment that they want, please work with us ahead of time. This is scheduled to be on the October 6th regular council meeting. The draft, the edits or proposed.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
So we move on to the city administrator report.
Deputy Mayor, just two things. First off, a reminder, we have no meeting next week. It is the 5th Monday of the month. But we do have our fall open house Tuesday from 5 to 7 at the senior center. We'll be focusing on a lot of projects that are going on. So we'll see everybody there.
Thank you. Agenda setting. So the council meeting agenda calendar, any changes? Everything good with that? Anything, anybody? Councilman Kenneth?
Specific to committees, can I address that in this,
Well, that's next.
that's, I'll wait.
Okay, so any council meeting agenda calendar changes we need? All right, we're gonna move on to council committee meeting agenda calendar.
Sorry about that, Deputy Mayor.
All right,
Yeah, I believe maybe Councilmember Elfers can confirm with me, but I think community development was moved from next week to October 1st. And I don't see that represented on the agenda packet calendar for committees. So just a note about that.
Mhm.
Thank you, Council Member.
Kenna, anybody else have anything? All right, well, we have no executive session tonight, so I will adjourn this meeting at 7:02. Thank you.